Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited about our conversation around data and CX in this age of AI. So before we get started, I thought everybody could do a very, very quick intro. And then in the context of our discussion and in the seats that you sit in, which are all a little bit different, can you tell us one thing that's changed, just one, to better understand and serve the customer right now?
Sure.
We're going to go down the line, starting with you, Max.
Max Blank, co-founder and COO of Triple Whale. We're the AI operating system for e-commerce brands. Our beginning was really in centralizing data and measurement across advertising and helping brands drive growth through which advertising channels are really moving. In the age of AI, our play has been, to really get outcomes out of AI, you need centralized data, you need to derive insights, and then you need to action those. And so the companies that are really leaning into that and having collapsed feedback loops, really condensing the feedback loop cycle, we're seeing a lot of outcomes, really driving and making it very tangible for brands to get, I'd say, outsized results leveraging AI.
I love that. Feedback loops. Henry?
Awesome. I'm Henry Spear. I'm Senior Vice President of Digital and Customer Care, so I manage everything offsite through the customer journey and everything post-purchase. And for those who don't know JD Sports, we are a multinational sneaker retailer. We operate in almost 50 countries, and we have 3,000 stores across the globe. So we see a lot across the various territories. And I'd say the biggest thing that's changed for us overall over the past even 6 months is the ability to take mass quantities of qualitative data, specifically from our call centers, and understand all of the friction points. We always had a way to attribute customer complaints and issues and amalgamate it via either an NPS or some sort of ranking. But now to be able to take that qualitative data, amalgamize it into something that's digestible for our agents, we can now feed that back into our digital experience to help improve that customer experience for us.
That's good. Justin Emig, CTO of Artisant Furniture Company. We're, in essence, a portfolio of luxury furniture brands. So we have retail, direct-to-consumer, hospitality contract, whatever you call it today, as well as interior design market. But we also manufacture for many brands that you shop in today, including Restoration Hardware. So ironically, Henry gave the perfect answer to that because I had a very similar one. I think it's, I'll use a nerdy term. To me, it's taking unstructured data and making it structured. So I think it's the same thing we could have done before. I don't think we got this newfound glut of customer data. We've always been, data rich, insight poor. But I think now we can do it at a scale we were no longer able to do it before. You needed a team of engineers and architects to do it. So that's it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristi Carlson, Vice President of Digital Technology at Kendra Scott. We're an Austin-based lifestyle brand. And I hate to be an echo of Henry and Justin, but the way I'll put it is we're able to listen to thousands of customer conversations at once. And then we can take that unstructured data, stitch it into our structured data, and then use machine learning models to really understand what that customer wants and where she is in her journey. And then we can customize an experience for her based on really rich insights.
So Kristi, let's stick to that because, Kendra Scott is really a relationship-driven brand, and you are getting a lot of data out there. So what does it look like a more personalized customer experience for them? What does that mean exactly, and how are you using the data to make that happen?
So we're connecting signals that are coming from our digital experience, retail stores, our loyalty program, NPS, like all of the different customer touch points. And then we're trying to understand where she is in the journey and then serving her a relevant experience. And so I think for us, the trick is figuring out ways to develop enough content to get that relative experience to her. And I think that's where we're trying to solve and unlock problems right now.
And Justin, it's interesting because you guys have, sofas that are anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000. So making a mistake is expensive. Mm-hmm. You're trying really hard to personalize that experience. How are you using the data to make sure that there are no mistakes, that you really are understanding what they're looking for so that you can service them the right thing?
Yeah, it's yeah, when you sell luxury furniture, a consumer is not buying a t-shirt. They're buying something that they live with for years. And now some people are starting to get rid of their COVID sofas, as they called them, to be able to get, something of quality. And I look and I think the metric, the KPI behind the KPI to us is confidence. Like our job is not to convince you to buy a $10,000 sofa. Our job is to make you feel confident in the fact that you're gonna sit on this thing every day. It becomes, I call what we sell memory machines, like because you think of, some of your favorite memories happen on your furniture. Your aunt is in town, your parents, maybe your newborn child, your dog, all of those things happen. We need you to feel confident. But that's also a two-way street. So we want you to feel confident in the purchase you make, but then we want to make sure that we have enough data that we're confident in the investment we're making for you to purchase from us. So we're stitching in as much data as we can. So our DTC brand, it's your pure play DTC custom furniture. So we'll sell swatches. So furniture is a unique industry, but it's like buying paint. So you get yourself some fabric leather swatch. And as soon as we have that, I have some data. I have some first-party data, and then I stitch anything that I can. You obviously send it to an address. Well, I need to know everything I can about that address. So Zillow provides a good amount of data. So we're, in essence, stitching a profile together. If you put green leather or red leather, or, so we're able to stitch whatever materials you purchased to be able to curate that experience, because our purchase journey is long. You don't just show up at a sofa site and buy a sofa that day. It's a 90, 120-day cycle, so it's 10, 11 touch points. I need to make sure the next one is enriched.
So you're really using data across all the different touch points to bring it together into a full lens, and it sounds like you guys too, Henry, because JD Sports has so many different brands, and you do have access to all of that data, so you want to bring it all together to have a cohesive view of the customer, but how do you do that without flattening each brand so that they don't all have their own voice?
Yeah, I'll expand a little bit on what Susie mentioned. So here in the US, we manage a brand called Finish Line, our hero brand, JD Sports, and then we have Finish Line at Macy's, which actually operates as a completely different business. So looking at those three businesses, it's really important to understand each of those consumers. We target very different demographics. They have different purchasing behaviors. And so one of the things that we did was create a loyalty program that acted as a bridge across all three of those brands. And what that really enables us to do is not only understand the individual purchase at each of those brands, but if you're a cross-banner shopper, I can actually understand what you're getting from one banner versus the other, and then give you a targeted offer based off of that past purchase. Maybe encourage you to come back at a more frequent rate than you have over the past 12 months based off of whether it's an incentive, a new product drop, and even potentially access to product depending on what you're expressing or your interests. And so while each banner has its own VOC and sort of tone and product offering, what we're really trying to do is understand what is the intent behind all of those individual purchases, and then talk to you in a way that makes sense based off of your most likely to purchase behavior next. And so it's really looking across all of those banners, and what that also enables us to do is take a lot of customer data into one central viewpoint and go from there.
It's so fascinating because there really is so much data out there and everybody's using it slightly differently. Max, you get to see so many different categories, so many different size companies. Everybody's collecting the data in different ways. You guys are working with them, and one of the things I love that you said up top is how do you collect the data and make real action? So what are you seeing as some of the differences in what some of your clients are doing?
Yeah, so everyone's got a ton of data. You're hearing it, structured data. I think you said, data rich, insights poor. I think we got to take it a step further. And how do we go from the data you collect to the insights you derive to the action you can take, and then measure that and collapse that loop to instead of what maybe would have taken, let's get the data, let's get the BI team or the analytics team to come back with some insights. Let's talk about it, let's discuss it. Maybe that feedback loop is taken out to a week, 2, maybe a month. Now we can really shrink that loop down to minutes, hours, and action it extraordinarily fast. So it's really taking that action. So let's get the data, let's get the insights, and let's action it. And that's what we're really focused on right now.
And not to put you on the spot, but are there certain types of data? Maybe I'm going to ask everybody the same question.
Yeah.
Is there a metric that you're each looking at right now to help you really when it comes to data and customer experience and making that journey better?
Yeah, I mean, for our brands, for our merchants, our customers, we're seeing like, instead of just, let's say maybe what were sort of vanity metrics, MTS, things like that, like I think CX can really become a business driving outcome, measurable business driving outcome, producing, organization that's extraordinarily fast, right? Outcome, the insights you can derive from what your data is telling you when you put AI on top of it, it's like this hyper-personalization and hyper-relevance. And so I think LTV becomes extraordinarily important. I think that the CX organization can be held to that in a sense, that they can like really start to drive that LTV. I think on a cohort basis, like if you can look at a cohort that came, let's say, last BFCM and maybe there was an issue with some of the product, right? And you can watch that cohort through and you can get the feedback of what was wrong with those products. And you can take that feedback and give it to product extraordinarily fast. And then fix it, and then the next cohort coming in. Let's measure those together and let's see how did that loop actually drive outcomes.
Cool. LTV still critical in
Yeah,
measuring
for
success.
sure. Yeah.
What about you?
I was going to say LTV, but I'm gonna pivot a little bit here. So no, of course. So we've done a lot of on-site personalization based off of intent. So based off of how that customer behaves once they land on our site. So if you immediately click sale, you've now been bucketed into a sale affinity based off that past behavior, and we'll continue to try to personalize that experience based off that. We've moved a bit upstream because as channel diversification has happened in terms of how people are discovering our brand, I have to say AI because we're at a conference in the year 2026. So as people are leveraging various models to come to our site, we are realizing that they're getting a lot of information before they even land on our site. And so if you are coming from one of the LLMs, you have a very different site experience than somebody who is naturally typing in one of our domain names. And so it's not a KPI per se, but we're really looking at our channel sourcing to create a different experience for that consumer based on how they land. And it's just trying to get them to click to purchase faster because unlike the sales cycle that we just talked about with furniture, my sales cycle is often minutes, if not shorter than that. And so I'm really focused on how do I get somebody through to checkout with the least friction possible, so then I can begin to get them to try to come back, sometime over the next 12 months.
Intent. I think that's a really good one, right? Understanding where the traffic is coming from helps you sort of move people into different buckets of the journey. Yeah. What about you guys, Justin?
And mine's slightly, I kind of mentioned it earlier, time to purchase. I think that is, to me, is important. If I can get you qualified in a way, that you're ready to make a purchase. I mean, furniture is an interesting space in the fact that for some reason we celebrate the presidents and we want to buy furniture. President's Day is a really important day, Memorial Day, July 4th. So whenever is a holiday, we're like, I need new furniture. So we also, when you have tentpole events like that, you have to plan around tentpole events. So if it's 120 days prior to President's Day and it's day 118, I'm like, I can't spend any money anymore because the funnel that I built day 120 has to be my funnel. So to me, I'm like, can I shorten that? Can I get the person coming in 45 days, prior to President's Day qualified quickly? So I think a lot of that is how do I condense that, but still give them the confidence that we're not rushing them through the sale? So to me, it's time to purchase.
So I'm going to be the exact opposite of Justin. So we're a relationship-driven brand, and my original answer to this was going to be lifetime value, but I'll pivot as well. One of the components of lifetime value is frequency. So how often is the customer coming back and shopping with us? And as we continue to measure and try to improve frequency, it really tells us more about how that relationship with the customer is deepening and if we're doing the right thing and we're serving her in the right way via our personalization efforts. So we want to see her come back multiple times a year by gifting or gifting for herself, special events. So yeah, I would say frequency.
Frequency. I was just going to say self-gifting is a big one.
It is a big one.
Yeah.
It's a tough one to measure, but it's a big one that we're looking at. So
I love that. And we've been talking a lot about data, obviously customer data, but you guys also collect a lot of store data and you bring it together, the feedback from stores, the feedback from customers, and you turn that into more actionable sort of actions, quick actions. Can you give us some examples of what you guys are doing?
Sure. We're trying to enable our store teams with more information about what the customer is doing in an omni-channel environment. So if she's looking at silver earrings on the website, we want to get that information to our retail associate so that when she comes in and she identifies herself as a loyalty customer, then our associate can say, hey, we saw that you were looking at these earrings, you want to try them on, right? So just being more intentional about what her intent is and trying to meet her there.
Right, connecting the online experience to the store experience. And so do the associates have mechanism, like tools in their hands to do
Yeah, they have access to the customer's loyalty information, and it's tricky to try to identify a customer when she comes in the store. So you don't want to be creepy about it.
Yeah.
And like use her phone to track her that she's coming in, although it's something, we've talked about. But I think trying to get that customer to identify herself so then we know who she is and we can service her better is the goal, so.
in a very seamless way. I love that. Now, I'm going to pivot a little bit, but not really. I mean, there's a source of information comes from the stores. There's also, Justin, you've talked a lot about how, in our previous conversations, how often the call centers are a cost center. But for you guys, they're really more like an opportunity center. And you're thinking about using that data in a way that helps beyond support, but actually create growth. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Of course, yeah. I think a little bit of what Henry even mentioned earlier. I think every customer question is a signal. It's a potential friction point. You think of when do you want to reach out to a retailer? Like, there is a lot of time where people are like, I just don't want to call them. I don't want to chat with them. I wish I just had the answer. So I look at all of those thousands of interactions that are happening every day, and I was like, they tell you where it hurts. And the problem is it was unstructured. It's this mess of emails. It was chat logs. It was email. It was, all of these different areas, phone transcripts. So, one just an example of what we ended up doing is I look at our Zendesk and all of these interactions, and I was like, well, that's where the money is. So again, LLMs are pattern recognition machines. So I just stuck all the unstructured data and said, every closed ticket, tell me what it's about. So it categorizes what that topic is about, and it builds, in essence, to use a nerdy term, builds a RAG. It builds a database of those, and then what it'll do is find gaps. Like, what haven't we told the consumer? And then a sea of agents go and build content, and of which is reviewed by a human before it goes up. And so then it's recursive. It's improving for the next time. So this thing runs all the time, and what it's doing is creating a glut of content of which we never had before, in which we always say like, oh yeah, we should write about that, but we never actually did. So that was just in it. I just look at all of these. I'm a marketer that became a tech guy, so I was like, which is the thing that I wish that I had when I was a marketer, is some of this insight. So then it was just, let's just build the tools, and that was not available, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So even using the sort of reasons why people are returning things as data points to help create growth.
One thing I'll say about our business is we're made to order. It always sounds really interesting, but our only warehouse is raw materials. We don't have a 3PL, we don't have a warehouse. Everything is made to order and it ships. So we're not built to take your sofa back, your 120-inch sofa. Like, we don't have a place for it. So our job of making sure you're qualified, and not having a warranty claim is super important. So in order for that to happen, we need to be able to answer the question. You're not going to be, if you have, you live in South Florida and you're going to put this sofa up against a window that gets 12 hours of sun, and leather is probably not a choice for you. Because when that leather cracks and fails, you're mad at me. You're not mad at yourself for putting it, in front of a window for 12 hours. So we have to make sure we're using that data to prevent them from themselves. And the last thing is, we have our DTC brand will get on the phone with consumers, like humans, real people, will get on there and have conversations. We'll learn about your lifestyle. What's your lifestyle? Do you have children? Do you have dogs? What's the space you want to put in? If you want a 10-foot sofa and you live in 59th Street, probably not going to work. So we have to learn, because again, we don't want to take that back. So our job is to make sure you feel confident and you don't want to have to return it. So.
That's great. So there's lots of different places to find data, right? In the store, from the store associates, from the customer service folks. And then you guys, Henry, at JD, you also think about that checkout moment, right? We often think about CX as discovery all the way to checkout, but not post. And you've opened that aperture to really think about how do you keep going from a customer service perspective. Can you tell us a little bit more about what data you're collecting there and how you're actioning against that?
Yeah, I'm probably a post-purchase evangelist. and I am going to personalize this a bit. I feel like anytime I've had a negative return experience, I never want to go back to that brand again. And so as we've grown, we've opened 400 JD Sports stores in the US over the past 5 years. So we're very new to a lot of consumers. And that leads to a lot of, whether it's, confusion over who is this brand, what do they do, whether it is a lack of trust of if we're going to deliver your product on time. And because of the category that we're in, it's a category that's ripe for fraud. And so there's unauthorized resellers. And so one of the things that we really try to think about is how do we give you the psychological safety to purchase from us versus one of our competitors or even one of our sister brands. And so when you think about post-purchase, if you have a negative experience, i.e. your package didn't get delivered, it didn't meet the promised delivery date that we gave to you, and you're contacting a call center, like the first thing that I want to make sure that I'm doing is not losing you as a customer. We just talked about LTV, and a negative call center experience is the first and easiest way to lose a customer in my mind. And so when I think about what we try to do now is we leverage, I mentioned earlier, our qualitative conversations as data points. But we also are doing propensity modeling based off of if we have heard from you before, what are the issues that you've contacted us before, and we're actually trying to determine whether or not you should be assisted by a chatbot or an AI agent from our side, or if you actually should go directly to a human because potentially you have a complicated address that we know we've had issues delivering to before, and really trying to get ahead of how we're servicing you as a customer. Even to the point where you might email one of our agents and we're actually going to say, is it possible for us to call you given our past interactions? And so we're trying to, again, just reduce friction as much as possible. And then the other piece that we really focus on is how do we get ahead of even those friction points from happening? So I mentioned promise delivery date as one of the key factors that we look at. We also celebrate every holiday. Until I moved into this category, I didn't realize Valentine's Day was as important for sneakers as it was some of the other categories that I've worked in, but it is. And so that lead up to Valentine's Day is really important for us as we think about promised delivery date. If we know we can't get you a package by then, we are working actively to pipe in all of our information from our carriers as well as our own warehouse on how we're looking from a fulfillment perspective to say, dynamically, that promise date is actually not going to make it. Like, are you sure you still want to purchase this product? And so it feels a little bit counterintuitive, but I want to make sure that that experience is really positive from day one. And that's more important to me because, again, I'll say it for the third time, I think, a bad first purchase or a bad return experience is the easiest way to lose a customer.
I love that because you guys are really breaking down the silos between all the different groups so that you can really have that 360 view and make sure the whole experience is great. Max, you guys see a lot of data. I mean, we just talked about here 3 brands that collect a lot of data, action against it in different ways. You talk a lot about how you have to really move, and it's critical, right? Everything is getting so fast. You have to really move from collecting data, creating insight, moving to action. You have the ability to see what a lot of brands are doing. What are some of the best-in-class things people are doing, brands?
Yep. I think it's really creating systems internally that centralize that data, drive those assets with an LLM, and then actioning, right? Let's action that. And I think something to kind of drive this home and kind of connect this all together, and you're talking about customer success tickets and stitching data together. Like in Triple Whale today, we help our brands, they can connect their help desk, right? They can connect, they've got their ad accounts on there. You can actually create like a workflow using our AI, which is Moby, that will scan all of your comments extraordinarily fast on Meta, on your Facebook ads, on your Instagram ads, and pick out the negative sentiment, and let's grab that, let's categorize that, and let's take that feedback and service that right back out to product, or if it needs to go to marketing to change any messaging. So it's really breaking down the silos within the organization, right? Things that maybe were siloed away are now seeing the same 360 view. So something that's very tangible, what you can leverage. So the best brands are really setting that up and delivering on that to their customers.
And they're able to take their own first-party data and other data to bring it together for that holistic view.
Yeah, they can bring in any of their integration. They can plug it into Triple Whale. We have our own first-party data. We have also post-purchase survey. But you can bring in anything and really get that holistic view to be able to action, get the insights to action extraordinarily fast across the whole organization.
I mean, I have so many more questions to ask you, but our time is starting to run out. So I'm just going to leave us all with this one last question, Aren. If you can all answer it, that would be great. As we look ahead, I know with AI, things are changing really quickly. So maybe in the 6 to 12 months, what's a customer, like a CX experience capability that you think all retailers really need to have?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep repeating it, but it's really having this way to take the insights to action. It's just, everyone has had that like wow moment with AI, and you're like, okay, if it just had maybe a bit more about what I do every day, I can really, do my, like kind of strap on that Iron Man suit. That's kind of what we do with AI, is allow our merchants to leverage AI in a way that's like safe, trusted. And I think that it's hard to say 6 to 12 months in the day we live in with AI. It's like every time you blink, there's something kind of new and crazy. But I think like workflows that are tied to customer experience that have some kind of trigger tied to a customer experience. We're all used to, let's say, retention marketing with email and SMS, and you're triggering emails and messaging based on either site action or past purchase history. I think you can take customer sentiment and have flows triggering to deliver like a highly, not just personalized with like your name in the email and the subject line, but highly relevant and personalized at the same time. And I think that is going to deliver a better experience, a more relevant experience, and therefore increase frequency and LTV.
It's interesting, what I heard from that is an age-old foundational retail mantra, which is surprise and delight. You really need to be able to surprise and delight your customer.
You can just do it in, it's like superpowers.
Yeah, I love that. Henry, what about you guys?
I think with the rapid development of voice agents, I think most retailers will have, I think customers will have an expectation that they have 24/7 access to a human-like agent that will be able to deal with more complex problems than they can today. I think most retailers have some sort of base level agent for simple things like where is my order and tracking confirmation, things like that. But I do fundamentally believe that as voice agents continue to improve and get better, like the customer expectation will be that they have access 24/7 to a human-like service level available to them.
Yeah. When the internet started, that's what happened. Everything became available at any point in time. Just going to keep getting more. What about you guys?
I mean, for me, I hope that we're, 10 years later, we're still talking about personalization. I hope that we're able to move past personalization to anticipation, to be more anticipatory. I mean, we have all this data. We're understanding patterns. We understand probably what's next. The infamous next best purchase. Like, we should be able to have enough of this data that we can expect a very high percentage is going to be the next step. So I do hope that we get to that, to get to that step. But I think what Henry said is perfectly astute, and that was where I was going to go with. So that was my B answer. That's my B answer.
It's also another age-old, right, retail mantra: be where I am, when I want you to be, and help me how I want you to help me. It's just going to get more.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think we have a case of great minds think alike on this stage. And being the last one in the row, I feel like I'm repeating what some of the other folks are saying. But we're really going to be going from prediction to anticipation, right? And the customer is going to expect that we know them very well, and that they have a consistent experience across all the touch points, and that we really can go from being reactive to being proactive, right? So I'm just kind of reshaping the same words that the folks on the panel said, but I think that's where we're headed, is higher expectations of the brand from the customer, and we need to be ready to meet them there, so.
I said one last question, but I was not telling the truth. I have one last one. Very quick, in 30 seconds or less. We talk so much, we're so insular sometimes in retail, right? But we don't always think about the customer. What's something that each of you think that a retailer thinks they're doing really well, but the customer is like, actually, you're not doing a great job? And I can go first if you want to think about that. Like, for me, when I want the Uber or Lyft to come in 5 minutes and I order it with that in mind, when it comes early, it's kind of annoying for me, whereas they think it's a great thing. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's more on like personalization and relevance. So like taking the data and being able to know that you want it on time.
On time, yeah.
Right, things
Not
like
early.
that.
Yeah.
More relevant and highly personalized and highly relevant messaging.
Yeah, I think we've given customers a lot of choice for channel communication from retailers, and while obviously there's always an opt-out legally, there is still I think we communicate too much as retailers to our customers in many ways. We say we let them pick the channel, but I do believe that customers feel overwhelmed by the amount of communication that they're getting today.
Yeah.
Mine's aligned. I think the tolerance for a disconnected experience has never been lower. To me, consumers expect context. They expect that you already know everything about them when they show up channel agnostic.
Yep, and I think brands think they're doing a really great job of targeting and creating relevant experiences, but I can't tell you how many times I'll get a marketing email, go to click through because I want that thing, and then I can't, not only does it not take me to that thing, but I can't find that thing anywhere. So there's definitely some fine tuning that brands need to do to make things more relevant in the customer journey.
And I love that because some of our key takeaways, which will appear momentarily on a slide, are really about, they're really about how do we take that data and not only turn it into insight, but really move to action. Customers, stores, customer service centers, there is a wealth of data out there, and it's how do you collect it, but listen to it and really action against it so that they feel heard and that they want to keep giving you advice and keep giving you their pain points. And we just heard here, we think we're doing a great job, but we're not always doing it. So customers will give you that feedback. And of course, the future of CX is, AI speeds everything up. Being proactive, being not as reactive anymore, but making sure at the end of the day that you're using humans and AI to help scale. Thank you, guys. It was really interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.